Finally, I've decided to do my video on why I decided to study Japanese. Just to get it out of the way so people, so nobody has to ask me ever. So this is going to go back quite a ways. Um, so, after I dropped out of high school, I was just, wandering around doing my thing, reading, you know, Star Wars, Expanded Universe books and stuff like that, with no real direction in my life. Then my grandparents said, get a job or go to college. And I said, okay, I'll need to get my GED, and then I'll go to college. Well, I went through a GED program, got it really quickly. I got a super high score in the essay, which my teacher said, well, if you get like 7 or 8 points on it, you do okay. I got 11 out of 12. The max number is 12 for the state of California, at least at the time. I don't know what it is anymore. This is what, 23 years ago or something. Almost 24 years ago. Jeez. Oh. Anyway, so I get my GED, then I immediately apply to go to college for the spring semester. And because I'm from California has a requirement if you go to college, for a junior college, a 2-year associate's degree, you have to take at least 1 year of a foreign language, and if you're at a 4-year university, you have to take at least 2 years. That's a requirement for graduation. And so, at the time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And, of course, my grandfather, and, being in California, was like, oh, learn Spanish. But I wanted to challenge myself. So I decided to... I thought about what languages would be kind of useful for, working. So, I thought, well, Spanish, there's already too many Spanish speakers in the state. And that, there's a Generation 1.5 kids who, they go to school to learn English, but their home language is Spanish, so they're not good at either because their parents either illegally immigrated or legally immigrated, whatever, and the parents never bothered to learn English, so they have to speak Spanish at home and English at school, so they're not good at either language because their parents are also, not highly educated. This is most common with illegal immigrants, but, people think of the, illegal immigrants now versus, then it's totally different situation. Back then there weren't as many, and it wasn't like an open borders policy thanks to Brandon, right? So, and then I was thinking, well, what's the hardest language I could possibly take at my junior college? Because my junior college was in the city, I didn't have to commute very far, could ride my bike to get to school. And they had Chinese, and I'm like, there's already tons of Chinese speakers, and it might be a little too hard, so I'll pass. And I thought the middle ground was Japanese. And sorry, I was eating popcorn that's really salty, so my throat's a little dry, so if I'm coughing a little bit, excuse me. What I decided on Japanese. Of course, my grandfather wasn't very happy about that. He's like, hey, just learn Spanish. Now I wish I also spent some time learning a little bit of Spanish. I know a tiny bit, but, most of it's just cussing. But, I decided on Japanese. It was my choice. It's my education. I'm doing what I want to. So, I basically, I did like Japanese animation. I was listening to 2mix, which is a pop band that everybody knows for, the opening to Gundam Wing, which is actually their first single was the solo to Gundam Wing. Well, not really. Their first album was under a different name. And they had been doing little live house shows a little bit here and there before that, before they changed their name to Two Mix. But their first real single as Two Mix was the first opening to Gun and Wing Just Communication. And that's how I got into them, is through a friend. But, and I still listen to Two Mix to this day. Whenever I go out, I'm always listening to Two Mix. So, don't think I've given up on Two Mix. I bought their 25th anniversary limited edition with all the goodies with it. So, yeah, I like Two Mix. But it wasn't for Gundam. It was because I heard their song on a CD and I was like, oh, this is really good. Now, so I'd been listening to that. I'd watched Sailor Moon. I'd watched Dragon Ball. I wasn't a big fan of Dragon Ball. But then, of course, when I was a little kid, they had Macross on TV and stuff, so I was watching Macross as a little kid. Of course, Voltron, Go Lion, right? I was watching that, I had Gatchaman too, which was, I guess, Battle of the Planets or something like that was the name that I was watching it under way back when. I forget. But it was Gatchaman. And so, but that was never, that never came into my thought process. I just wanted something difficult to do. And this is why, like I mentioned in a previous video, how I hate it when, even a Japanese person, when they meet me for the first time and they ask me, oh, you're so good at, they'll give you their typical spiel. Oh, your Japanese is so good. Is it because you like Japanese animation? I'm like, no, that's insulting. Why would I study a language based on the pop culture of a country? That's just stupid. And people who do that, I don't, they limit themselves by doing that. Learning a language is a lifetime commitment. That's why whenever I refer to the study of Japanese, I never once said I've completed it, because every day is something new. And even if I read a comic multiple times, maybe there was a kanji in there I didn't know how to read before. Oh, that's a new kanji I learned how to read today. So, or going through, all the virology papers I do that I have to try to translate stuff into Japanese for. Having to learn new words for that, too. Ugh. But, and learning how to explain that, like, to normies over here. But, the problem is that the people outside Japan who typically study Japanese. Now, when I was in college, well, because of the first, the first year you have to take it as a requirement to graduate, there was lots of Chinese people, and everybody's like, oh, well, there's kanji, so we can write it really easily, and that's what they thought. But once you get beyond that, requirement stage for graduation, and you go beyond that, and you continue the study beyond that, the people who stick around are the people who are legitimately interested in learning the language. For the most part. There are quite a few, weebs in that mess. But when I transferred to a four-year university, my class was really small. I think we had, in my language class, we only had maybe 8 or 9 people. So it was really small, because people don't continue after that second year, because at a 4-year university you have to do it for 2 years, and they don't stay after that. They're like, okay, I got my requirements for graduation out of the way, I'm done with learning a language. And for me, I made it my major because I tried to do computer programming. At the time, the beginner programming class was QBasic. So if you want to know how long ago this was, yeah. So QBasic was the base, and then after you passed the QBasic class, you went on to learning how to do C and HTML. And at that time you didn't have CSS, so it was just HTML, and there wasn't a whole lot of. I don't remember them having a JavaScript class back then either. I don't remember exactly, but I don't believe they had one. They had other programming language. Like I think they had machine language or something too. Which was, Jesus. But I wasn't very good at QBasics, so, and I couldn't get the logic of it behind. So, because I was thinking of either majoring in computers and doing the foreign language thing on the side, or um, uh, what is it? Or double majoring. At the time, that's what I was thinking, and I changed my mind and I just said, forget it. I'll just major in the language because it's the thing I'm good at. When I realized I can do it, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'll just major in this, and then I'll get my degree in Japanese. Fine. Um, but I want to make it clear that again, that learning a language is something that takes a lifetime commitment. Like you can't just go into it, like, oh, I'm going to, like learn how to watch Japanese animation in Japanese without having, fan subs and all this other garbage. No, 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 no. That's superficial garbage, and it doesn't matter if you come to Japan or not. Well, I mean, because I'm in Japan, right? So that's I use come, but that's not the point. The point is that learning a language is a lifetime commitment, and you have to always think of it as, every day is something new. And, yeah, I have lots of comics. I have lots of light novels that I read, and, I have all of Macross here, so I watch Macross here and there. I've got, a bunch of the Star Wars Expanded Universe books in Japanese. I listen to a lot of Japanese music. Of course, I listen to anime songs too, but, it's usually limited to Toho Eurobeat remixes or like Macross or like older stuff like Slayers or something like that. But it's it's about the language and developing it to like going to that next step. Like in terms of my reading, I'll give you a good example. So there's a Japanese test. It's the kanji aptitude test. Now when I was in college, they had one of the teachers at my college actually was like, he set up a testing location at the college. Then after that he changed it to his house, but because he didn't have enough people who were wanting to take it at one point. Because a lot of the reason why he was able to do it at the college was because he had so many, kids from parents who were in that part of California, Los Angeles, that were there for work. And at the time, he had a big Toyota factory. The Toyota headquarters was based in Los Angeles. There was all this stuff there, but Toyota's headquarters moved to Texas, I believe. And before that, I think they were in like Kentucky or something. So they moved out of Los Angeles because it's too expensive to rent the buildings and stuff like that, to pay for the buildings and stuff. Even back then, this 20 years ago. So they had to so like all of these people who are coming over to work were now moving to other states because the companies were moving their headquarters out of California. The same thing happened in New York, though. Is like a lot of them, they left a lot of their New York offices, but they closed all the LA ones. And so the Japanese population who was coming over from Japan to work and they raised their kids there or something dwindled so quickly. Like, it was within a year, not even a year, I don't think. It was like within maybe 6 months that everything had changed. And that's why my teacher had to, change the location from the school to his house, because I just wanted to, he was trying to get the students of the Japanese language classes to take the test. And so part of the reason why I can read so well is thanks to that test. Because you have to learn all the different pieces of the kanji, and you have to learn, like the different ways to read them, because there's multiple ways to read many kanji, and some it's based on kanji. Some kanji only have like one way to read it. Other kanji have like 7 or 8 ways to read it. So you just have to, like know which way is which, right? But because of that, I was able to help my reading ability quite a bit. It also helped that I was playing lots of video games in Japanese at the time too. So even if I couldn't read the kanji at the time, I was, constantly reading. Now, when I read out loud, I'm horribly slow, which you've probably noticed from me when I do my videos translating Japanese news articles and stuff. My reading out loud isn't very good. My reading itself is really good, though. I can read by myself and, like read Sailor Moon comics or something, and I have no problem whatsoever. I read about the same speed as I do in English. Almost. I'm a little bit slower than English, but I don't want my Japanese to be lower than my English when it comes to reading speeds. So that's why I read a lot now. Even if it's just a comic book, I'll read, and I try to read a lot. But what is it? But that helped my reading ability quite a bit by doing that, and it pushed me to go to that next step. Now, after I came to Japan, I took the test 3 more times. Yeah, I took the test 3 times after I came to Japan. So I have level 5 of that test, which is all the kanji from the Chinese characters from elementary school. But my reading level is way higher than that. My writing level, oh god, because of stupid, back then it was cell phones, now it's stupid phones, it's dumb phones. But because of those, my writing has fallen off a cliff. But my reading has always been really good. So, and because I use, I don't like using it, but I use Line because nobody will switch to session. I tell them to look into it and just install it, and nobody listens to me. So, because gotta be a normie, I hate Line. It's spyware, and I really don't want to use it anymore. But because of email and chat programs for your phone and stuff like that, my reading has stayed pretty good, and reading books has helped a lot too. Now that my level is high enough to where I can read them, like Sailor Moon comics are real easy to read because they put the way to read the kanji but next to them, all of them, so you can even people, as long as you know hiragana, katakana, can somehow get through it. Just you'll have trouble because of the vocabulary, that's all. But I don't know how to read every kanji, and I know that. I should study a little more, or at least if I come across something, I should probably look it up. Like when I'm reading, those news articles, I come up with, there's multiple times that there's kanji there I can't read, and I just, skim right over it. Because what I do is, even if I can't read the kanji, I can recognize what it means by the character itself and when it's in combination with other characters. So I can, I understand what's being said, even though I can't read the kanji exactly. And that's because of taking that kanji test. Because I've spent, all that time, learning how the kanji are put together, and what certain things mean, and what certain parts of a kanji means, and I can, in my mind as I'm reading, I can break those down pretty quickly. So that's why I can, that's why even if you hear me make a mistake in not reading a kanji, I can translate it properly, because there are some that I can't because I just don't know. But in general, I can figure out the meaning of the kanji through just looking at it without having to know how to read it. So if you ever hear me skip over kanji or something, that's why. Or if you hear me having, my voice gets quiet because I don't want to look like I don't know how to read it or something. But it's not that I don't know the actual reading for it. But I understand what they're trying to say, for the most part, so that's not an issue. But this is why I say it's a lifetime commitment, because like even now I can't read every kanji. I need to build that. I need to work on that, of course. But and that's on me. That's personal responsibility. I've just been too lazy to do it. Long time ago I was like really into it. Let's study more, study more, study more. And now I'm like, whatever. But because I already can read novels and I can understand what the stories are, so it's like, well, whatever. I don't care. um, but it's this is why I mentioned that it's a lifetime commitment. You like, there's no end to the study of a language, and I want people to understand that it's not because I like Japanese animation. Of course, like I'm using my profile picture thing here for the background of this video. And this is from a novel. This is even animated. Well, there are animated versions of Record of Lodoss War, but this is the artwork from the novel Black Knight. So that's why I like this, because I like Ashram and I like Pyrotes from Record of Lodoss War. I like them more than Deedlit and Parn, to be honest, because like, although I've changed my opinion about Deedlit quite a bit since I've been reading the novels, I will say that my opinion of Deedlit has gotten much better because of the novels. I like her a lot more, but I still like Pyrotes more. And I like Ashram more than Parn. Parn is like the general, like kind of hero type character, and Ashram is like the antagonist character. But I'll get into Record of Lodoss War at some point on a different video. I just want to make sure that, yes, this looks like Japanese animation, but it's not. It was done by Izubuchi Yutaka, and he's famous for like mecha designs and stuff. But he also did the character designs here. And these are his most, and these character designs in particular are his most important contribution to the world of design in general in Japan and in the world. But I'll leave that for another day. But it was never about, I like Japanese animation, I'm gonna be so kawaii, or some stupid garbage that we would do, right? It was that I just want to challenge myself, and I take, pride in the effort that I've put into it, and the fact that I can, go wherever I want to by myself, and, I can go to the middle of nowhere where like 10 people living in a village in Japan. I can communicate with them. This is something that, a normal foreigner can't do in Japan, because they don't speak Japanese at that level. They can't communicate with people at that level. And that's why most foreigners, they will go to a stupid bar like Hub or something like that, where it's just like, a massive sausage party where everybody's like trying to hit on chicks and whatever. And it's, and they pick their native language, and they prefer to associate themselves with other foreigners rather than the actual people here in Japan. So, that's why their Japanese never improves. So, they don't communicate with Japanese people. They outside of, let's say, work or something, and they usually just talk to their foreigner friends, or they go out with their foreigner friends all the time, or something like that. And this has always been a major issue for me, was because, and I don't have many foreign friends. Very, very, very few. Like, I can count them on a single hand. And this is why, is because I know how good my Japanese is. I can do whatever I need to do. I can talk on multiple subjects. You hear me, like, even if you, like, just happen to look at any of my Japanese translated videos of the research papers I look at, that even then, that's a challenge. That's a major challenge for me, to be able to, like, explain that stuff as simply as possible. But that's like the level that I can communicate at, and I don't want people to always ask me to translate stuff for them. And I find that insulting. It's like, I spent all this time, more than half of my life, with Japanese. And it's going to be the rest of my life with Japanese. And I don't want to be used by people. You want to pay me for it? Sure. You pay me money, I'll do it. But that's not how people think. They'll be like, oh, can you please help with this? I need you to translate this for me. I'm like, no. Pay me for it. And this actually happened once, and it made me feel really dirty afterwards. My first job when I moved to this city, my coworker, she was from Canada. She was Vietnamese descent, but she was from Canada. I believe she was from like Edmonton, I think. Funny, because I'm watching my Colorado Avalanche beat the living you-know-what out of the Edmonton Oilers right now. But anyway, put that aside. I believe she was from Edmonton. And there was one day we went over to the electronics store because she wanted to buy a digital camera. And at that particular store, supposedly you're able to negotiate the price down even on a new item or something. She had looked into it. I knew nothing about this because I didn't care. When I go to a store, I just pay retail whatever they're selling it for. And they're like, okay, here's your money. But she wanted to, she wanted me to negotiate with them to get the price down. And because she couldn't speak Japanese whatsoever. And I had to do that, and it made me feel really dirty, and I didn't like it. And after that, I said, never again am I going to do anything like this. Unless you're going to pay me for it. You want to pay me to translate and, negotiate with people? I ain't cheap, I've been doing this for, I've been involved with, Japanese period for 23 years. So, yeah, 23 and a half already, I think. Or almost 23 and a half, something like that. So, I take pride in what I've accomplished, and to dumb my accomplishment down to, oh, do you like pop culture, is insulting to me. It's horribly insulting to me. And, Japanese are really good at, the fake compliment crap, but, and I've gotten tired of that too. It's been too many years. I've heard it way too many times. I'm sick of it. But, whenever somebody says, you're Japanese, Nihongo jozu desu ne, and I'm just like, hi. Whatever, right? Yeah. And then I just don't even, garnish an honest response to it at this point, because I'm just tired of it. The thing that always angers me is that they assume that because I like Japanese animation, or they assume, well, first they assume that I like it. I mean, I do, but they if you see me for the first time, you wouldn't know if I liked it or not, right? They just make that assumption. And so they, one, assume you like Japanese animation. Two, they assume that you study Japanese so you could watch that. And that is the most insulting shit ever. This is why, all these J-tubers, and I'm going to make a rant about this, but I'll give you a little preview. The J-tubers that are on YouTube, that go to these special places and, oh, look at this, look at this, this secret surprise bag I got. Let's open it. That's all pop culture garbage, and that's, that kind of stuff is insulting to me, because, I spent all this time, building up my own personal ability. I don't care if these people, how much they can speak Japanese or whatever, right? I don't care. The fact of the matter is that they dumb down their Japanese language ability so that they can appeal to a specific group of people that have, that they're obsessed with Japan, but know little about it, and then these people, like they just follow the pop culture line. They pretend like they're Japanese. I don't pretend like I'm Japanese. You can't ever do that. You're not Japanese. I'm not Japanese. you know, like I went through that phase once where I was so egotistical about my Japanese ability that, I considered myself on par. And, of course, old age and wisdom, changes your views on a lot of things. But what these specific JTubers do is completely insulting to me. I find them to be revolting, and I will do a rant on them eventually. I will get around to that. I got another rant I'm working on now that I want to, work on first. But I do want to make it clear, though, that my my Japanese ability is from dedication and hard work, and it's not what is it? It's not about, some stupid pop culture garbage. I know people who follow me on Minds or Gab or something, they know that I like it and I bring it up and I'm part of some groups there, but I'm on a level that's beyond all of these people because I can talk about, what the latest thing is. Like, I'm watching Birdie Wing. Birdie Wing just started 8 weeks ago or something, 9 weeks ago. These people don't know about that. They never even heard of it. Because, they've never heard of it. And I'm only watching that because a stupid friend told me, hey, let's watch a stupid girls' golf show. I'm like, why? That sounds so stupid. And then, because of morbid curiosity, I watched it, and I'm watching it every week now for some stupid reason. I don't even know why. But, but it's, I can't relate to these groups of people anymore. The people who play, JRPGs. The people who do, Let's Plays on YouTube or whatever. They'll do them all in English, right? Unless they're in Japan and they are Japanese people, they're Japanese nationals, whatever, and they're doing them in Japanese, right? But I can read them in Japanese. I did that Sailor Moon one, right? I can read it all in Japanese, I can play in Japanese, and then explain it in English as I'm going along. So, there's a disconnect there. I can't relate to those people because, I'm on a level where I can play through, the Tales games. I can play through, old Final Fantasy games, in Japanese. I have Final Fantasy 4 right here in my Super Famicom. Right now, just sitting next to me. I have, Jigoku Shoujo PS2 game, which is hard to get. It's very expensive, too. That's why I can't, sit and watch people play those games because they're playing them in English and the English voices drive me crazy because I can understand in Japanese. And I'm just like, oh, I'll play in Japanese or I'll listen to Japanese if I really cared about it. And that's not to take away from some of the people who follow me on Minds or whatever that play those games. They don't understand Japanese. That's the only option they have. Good on them. I literally went into one of their live streams once just to hang out, just to talk to the person, but I couldn't do it because the English the English voices in Final Fantasy X drove me crazy. I wanted to punch the screen because it drove me crazy. I was like, well, I can just listen to it in Japanese. I don't care. So, this is, to me, people think it might be so great or I'm so smart, and then I get said that a lot too by Japanese people. Oh, you're so smart, you could learn a second language. I'm like, no, I just worked hard at it. Anybody can do it as long as you put the effort into it. And this is something that a lot of foreigners who come over here and they don't know any Japanese when they get here. I had already been, the first time I came to Japan was 2.5 years, or a little over, almost 2.5 years after I first started studying Japanese. My Japanese was terrible. I had zero, my vocabulary was trash. My grammar understanding was okay, my vocabulary was trash. And I was instantly put into a situation where I needed to, you know, like learn as quickly as possible, and that's where I learned how to use dialects. I'll just naturally, because I had a good enough base in the grammar of the language that it was just a matter of figuring out how the grammar changes. But I didn't actually start living in Japan until after 7 years of study. Well, it was 5 years of study with an ex who's Japanese, and we were talk. The more I studied and the more my language developed, the more we just talked in Japanese at home or when we were together. And then I had 2 years in graduate school, and then I came to Japan after that. But at the same time, like, there was a couple Japanese people in my graduate school program and my master's program who were that we talked in Japanese usually. So this is why, you know, my level, even when I was in the US, didn't slip very much because I was always talking to somebody in Japanese. It's somewhere, somehow, right? And then, what is it? After moving here is when my, level just shot up and my confidence shot up and it turned into an ego and all this other garbage, right? Being young and stupid is a wonderful thing sometimes. But I want it to be clear that I've never once said I studied Japanese for X amount of years. I always say I have been studying, because every day is a new thing. And I want people to realize that learning a language, whatever language it is, I just did Japanese, whatever people choose to do, whatever language you choose to study, it's a lifetime commitment, and don't give up on it. Whatever language you pick to study, whatever language you want to learn, dedicate yourself to it. Get it to the level that, for now you're satisfied, but always remember that every day you learn something new. And that's the only way you can learn a language properly, is just dedication to it. So that was my story about how I decided to learn Japanese. So don't confuse me as some weeb who just, oh, because I like watching Sailor Moon, I'm gonna learn Japanese. That's complete bullshit. Okay, so I wanted to make that. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, just to talk about why I studied Japanese and why I wanted to. Well, I didn't explain why I wanted to move to Japan, but why I study Japanese and what my philosophy on it is, and where I stand on that and everything. So I wanted to talk about that a bit. This is kind of a long video, but I wanted to make sure I put it all down for the record so people understand. And I don't want to be accused of being a weeb, because I'm not. And I'm gonna do a nice little video about that soon enough. Don't worry. A direct attack on them. So don't worry. It'll be great. So anyway, I will end the video here. I hope people understand where I'm coming from, and where how serious I'm about my own abilities, and how I don't take them for granted. I protect them like they're a treasure, and I don't just flaunt them because I can. I mean, sometimes I feel like, I'm special because I can do it, but I don't try to flaunt that. Honestly, the reason why I do those videos with the Japanese articles is because I want people to understand what the reality of Japan is, and not from the fake news or some, meme that they saw on the internet and they think that that's how Japan is. I want to describe what's actually going on over here. So it's not an ego thing. It's not it's not for my own stroking my own ego. It's because I really honestly want people to understand the situation here, which is why I do those videos. When I find a decent article, I always look it over, and then I translate it as I'm reading it so that people can, read along with me and understand everything and and then I add my commentary, my opinions in it. But that's not me trying to show off. That's me trying to I'm honestly trying to make people understand what the reality is. So, I want people to realize I'm a very serious person about this. So, and not just, somebody who just randomly came here and all this other stuff. I've been here for over 16 years. If it was just some random thing that I decided, I would be back in the US already. So, anyway, I'll end the video here. It's been kind of long, so see you in the next video.